Happy Wednesday, everybody. As we get started with this video, I want to read several passages of Scripture. Now, some of you don't like all this Bible stuff, but if you don't like it, don't watch it. Because let me just say this, as I've said before, if you're not a Christian, if you don't have the Holy Spirit of God dwelling within you, all of this is going to be foolishness to you. You're not going to understand it. You're not going to see the point. As I've already seen some comments from people, which I just don't see why you're using the Bible. Well, I don't expect you to understand. But like I said, if you don't like it, you can either fast forward or don't watch the video. I don't care. You know, and I'm not trying to be obstinate when I say that. I'm just saying that there are a lot of people who appreciate the biblical principles that I present. Because when it all comes down to it, at the end of the day, as people say, you are accountable to God. Whether you believe so or not, whether you believe in God or not, the fact is God exists and you are accountable to Him, whether you like it or not. And one of these days you will find out that I am correct. So anyway, I want to read a few passages here because it pertains to what I'm going to be speaking about in this video. Very much pertains. Because parents have a responsibility before God to teach their child, to train their child in the proper way. All right, so Exodus chapter 13, verse 14 through 16. It says, "Gather the people together to me, so that I will let them hear my words, so that they may learn to fear me all the days they shall live on the earth, and so that they may teach their children." Yeah, there's a responsibility that parents have to teach their children the things of the Lord. Deuteronomy 6, verses 6 through 9. "These words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up." All right, so that's kind of in an exaggerated way, although it's really not an exaggeration, of what God wants the home to be like for children. God wants children to be raised with biblical principles. And it's the parent's responsibility to teach those biblical principles to the child. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 9 and 10 says, "Only give heed to yourself and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things which your eyes have seen, unless they depart from your heart all the days of your life. But teach them to your sons and your grandsons. Gather the people together to me, so that I will let them hear my words, so that they may learn to fear me all the days that they live on the earth, and so that they may teach their children." Again, it quotes that passage. All right, the last one that I want to read comes from Psalm 78. It says, "I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter insightful sayings of old, which we have heard and known, what our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, but will tell the coming generation the praises of the Lord, and His strength, and the wonderful works that He has done. For He established a rule in Jacob, and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children, that the generation to come might know them, even the children who are not yet born, who will arise and declare them to their children, that they may set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments. So I think those passages are pretty clear what the responsibility that parents have to their children to raise them in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, as the Bible says. I can remember in my childhood, which I had a great childhood. Now, my parents were not what you would call religious at all. We never went to church. But my parents were very much old school. The kids did not run the home. Mom and Dad ran the home. Yeah, you see so many kids today that it's like the kids run the homes. So it wasn't that way in our house. But my parents were very old school. You know, like I said, we didn't go to church or anything like that. But my parents taught all of us to be very moral, to be respectable. And my mom was from the South. And no offense against you Southern people, but, and it's not so much this way anymore, but Southerners are very concerned what other people think about them. Yeah, there's a lot of, keeping up with the Joneses. There's a lot of putting on appearance. And my mom, being from the South, she was very concerned what other people thought about us, what they thought about our family, and blah, blah, blah. In fact, my mom made me wear dress clothes to school. She wouldn't let me wear blue jeans. Now, here's kind of the funny thing. Think about it. I got thinking about this, and it's like, Mom was so concerned she didn't, because I don't want you to look like white trash. Mom, have you seen the price of Levi's? Yeah. But, I didn't get to wear Levi's to school, or blue jeans, whatever, but I bought Levi's. I didn't get to wear Levi's to school until I was like a sophomore in high school, when I was working during the summers and was able to buy my own pants. In fact, Mom told me, she goes, "You want to wear jeans to school? You buy them." Yeah, she made me wear dress pants. So here's the funny thing. You guys remember those old patches, the iron-on patches that they used, like when you ripped your knee out on your pants, and they'd put those iron-on patches over the knee? Yeah. So here Mom's all concerned about us not wanting to look like white trash when we go to school. Couldn't wear jeans to school because it might make us look like white trash. But let me ask you a question. Which looks more like white trash? Wearing a pair of Levi's to school, or wearing a pair of dress pants with those iron-on patches? Because you know how boys, and you moms who have raised boys, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We're hard on clothes. Yeah, we no matter how much we are told to take care of our clothes, boys are going to be boys. At recess, you're going to be out playing football, playing tag, wrestling around, and I can't tell you the number of knees in my dress pants I ripped out in all the years of school. And so many times, pretty much I would say most of, not all of my pants had those iron-on patches over the knees, because I'd be ripping them out. So here I am going to school in these dress pants with the iron-on over the knees. But I couldn't wear blue jeans. So anyway, when I think it was between my freshman and sophomore year, I went to work. moving pipe. And I made a bunch of money. Well, not a ton, but enough that I could buy some clothes. And I went down to the Merc, which used to be the department, the clothing store downtown. There's nothing downtown now. It's all ghost town, pretty much. Back then, we had the Merc. And went down there and bought me like 3 pairs of Levi's. They were the old, now they call them the 501s. Back then, that was all they had, was to shrink the fit. So luckily I bought the right size, and once they shrank the fit, they fit me. But yeah, so sophomore year of school, I felt so proud that I was able, I don't want to look like white trash, but I was the only one out of my entire class that had to wear dress pants to school. Now you tell me that's not embarrassing. So my sophomore year, I was so happy. The first day of school, I showed up in my pair of Levi's. And I was just, that was great. And I bought a couple more pairs because I worked, actually, they had like a work study program where I'd work part-time after school or whatever. And earn more money, so I'd buy me some more clothes, the kind that I like to wear. And, of course, Mom wasn't happy, but she told me, she goes, if you buy your own clothes, you can wear whatever, So, of course, we used to have a dress code. There was a lot of things you could not wear, especially if you were female. You couldn't dress provocatively like they do now. You'd get kicked out of school. You'd be sent home pronto. So, anyway, I was so proud that I got to wear these Levi's. Now, like I said, my parents were very much old school. But, if I really think back, my parents were so patient with us because we started a band. I think when I was in 7th grade, I think we started it. And in 8th grade, we were actually playing gigs. And I played drums. Dad got me a nice Ludwig drum set with Zildjian cymbals. It was really, really nice. And you only know what I'm talking about if you are familiar with drums. But that's a good brands on both. So anyway, I had my drum set up in my bedroom, and I'd be in there, boom, 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 playing my. I basically learned how to drum by listening to my Grand Funk, because I liked Mark Farmer, I think is his name. I don't know, there was Don Brewer and Mark Farmer. I think Farmer was a drummer. But anyway, I loved the style of the Grand Funk Railroad drummer. And I would practice. I'd be playing of course I had to play the record pretty loud to be able to hear it over the sound of my drums. So I'd be in there blaring music and Yeah, that's right, Copper. Did I do that? I'm making weird noises, huh? He's giving me a weird look like, dude, what? But anyway, so I'd be in there playing my drums, And yeah, it had to have driven Mom crazy. Luckily, the TV room was at the other end, which is actually the room that I'm in now, what we used to call the TV room. The bedroom's clear at the other end of the house. It's a 3-bedroom house, so it's pretty good size. So I'd be in there, boom, boom, and then when we had our band practice, we'd have all the band members in there with the guitars and amps and drums, and be in there practicing. And of course, when we first started, it was pretty much just noise. But now we actually got pretty good. But in there playing band practice, and stuff, and just noise all the time. So I think back at how patient my parents actually had to be to put up with all that noise and stuff. But they did encourage us, and we actually became pretty good. But the one thing, like I said, the one thing that my parents taught us, or I shouldn't say one thing, but one of the main things, was to be respectable, to have morals, to have standards. I was a lot different than most of the kids in school. because of the things that we had been taught. And so we were taught to be moral. Now, I did go out drinking one time in high school, got grounded for 9 weeks. I already told that story before. But for the most part, I was a pretty good kid. I didn't get into trouble. I didn't go out, wasn't allowed to go out running around. I wasn't allowed to go to any of the parties, so that, at the time, I didn't like it because here everybody else is out partying and I had to stay home. I couldn't go. But, I didn't like it. But one thing that my parents realized is that they were my parent and not my friends. They didn't care whether I liked them or not. They did not care whether I liked how they raised me or not. They had their principles, they had their rules, and that was that. We didn't like it. Too bad. But one of the things that the Bible's very clear on is that it is parents' responsibility to teach their children. It's the parents' responsibility to see that their children remain innocent. The Bible's very clear there to protect the child's innocence. It is wrong to involve your child, Holly, in your nonsense. But what that shows me is you really don't care about your child. You don't care about protecting his innocence. You are a narcissist, and you only care about Holly. Bible says, Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. And there's a message to fathers too. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4 says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Okay, that doesn't mean teaching them crazy ideas like that you don't respect authority. In fact, the Bible teaches just the opposite, that you are to respect authority. It doesn't mean teaching stupid ideas like Santa Claus is Satan, the earth is flat. All these just crazy ideas because you feel you need to be different or something. They're nonsensical. And you're just passing on your idiocy to your child. Proverbs 29, verse 15 says, the rod and rebuke give wisdom, but a child left to himself brings shame to his mother. Now, when it talks about the rod, of course, it's speaking about spanking, speaking about discipline, but it doesn't just mean that. It also means guidance. It means giving them spiritual direction. Now, here's the problem. How can either of you, Chris and Holly, give direction to your child when you don't give yourself direction? How can you guide your child when you can't guide yourself? How can you discipline your child when you don't discipline yourselves? How can you teach a child to walk in the ways of the Lord when you're living in sin, when you're living in complete disobedience? You don't seem to have the mental capability of understanding what you're actually teaching your child. It's a complete 180 from what you should be teaching him. You should be teaching him how to obey the Lord. You should be teaching him morals. You should be teaching him standards. But when you have none, when you have no morals, you have no standards, you can't even direct your own lives in the proper way, how can you expect to direct your child's? I mean, look at the example that you're setting for your son. It's disgusting. And you people who defend that, you are sick. You people who support them, you are sick. To defend what they're doing with that child, you have to be sick. Absolutely sick. Now, what happens when you just raise a child like you are right now? Let me give you an example. When I lived in Billings, Montana, I was working for a trucking company. And the guy I worked with in the evenings who set up the loads, his name was Sam. Sam was one of those people. He was a wild child, put it that way. He was also an alcoholic. You could always tell when he'd been drinking because he would come to work and he'd be all grumpy and, you can tell he hadn't had his alcohol. Well, he always had his bottle of whiskey out in his truck. And he would disappear for a little bit. All of a sudden, I'd look, where'd Sam go? I don't know. I think he's out in his truck getting a drink. Anyway, he'd come in, and he'd be all happy and giggly, and yeah, you could tell he'd been out tipping his bottle a little bit. I felt sorry for the guy. I think he had a good heart, but he was one of these guys. He liked to fight, and he was just kind of a bully type of guy. And he liked me because he tried bullying me when I first got there, and I didn't take it. So from that day on, he thought I was the greatest thing since sliced bread because of the fact I stood up to him. Whereas most everybody else would cower to him. Well, anyway, he had a son. He was, at the time, I believe, when this happened, I believe he was 13. And he basically was raising the kid to be just like him. He wouldn't discipline him. He basically let him do whatever he wanted. The kid would come in there. What was funny is when the kid would come in there, he'd always show me the ultimate respect. But he showed Sam none. Well, anyway, one time, I don't remember what exactly the situation was, but when the kid was 13, and he wanted something, and Sam wouldn't give it to him. I don't even remember what it was. This would have been back in about 2008, 2009. Well, anyway, one night, he had 5 or 6 of his friends. And there was a few older kids that he ran around with that were like 16, 17. And he had about 5 or 6 of his friends, and he was mad at his dad because his dad wouldn't give him some money to go do something or whatever it was. Anyway, he had 5 or 6 of his friends show up, and they jumped Sam. And a couple of the kids had, I don't know if they had baseball bats or big sticks or whatever, but they did have weapons. I mean, not knives or anything, but, clubs. And they beat Sam. They jumped him all at the same time, and they beat Sam to a pulp. I remember he came to work one night. I don't remember how long after the incident this was. But he showed up for work, and his face was just black and blue and purple. His eyes were swollen. His face was swollen. I mean, he had cuts and stuff all over his face. I mean, he looked He looked like he got hit by a truck. And I'm like, holy crap, what happened? When he told me. Well, anyway, they beat him up. He got his keys, the keys to the truck, out of Sam's pocket. They went out. Some jumped in front, some jumped in the bed of the pickup, and he took off, stole his dad's truck. He ended up getting in an accident. Here he is, 13 years old, definitely not old enough to drive. And all his friends jump in the truck. They take off, and he runs into, I don't remember if he ran into a telephone pole or exactly what the deal was. I think that's what he did. Anyway, he ended up wrecking the truck. And the thing is, Sam and I had some discussions. And I kept telling him, dude, you leave him to himself and let him raise himself, basically. You're going to regret it. Well, anyway, his son and the other kids, well, luckily nobody was hurt, except for maybe a couple of bumps and bruises and scratches. But nobody was hurt to where they had to have actual medical attention. And that was a miracle in itself. But anyway, the kid ended up in juvie. All the kids did. And it was right after that I left there. So I don't know what the disposition was. I don't know. I would probably, if I were to guess, I would say by now, because this was back in 2008, 2009. So his son would be like 26, 27, 28, around in there now. And I would, if I was a betting man, I would bet that the kid's already in prison. Because this kid was wild, just like Sam. I'm surprised Sam never ended up in prison, because he drove drunk all the time. Always getting in fights. And his son was the same way. Your child's going to follow your example. It's just like somebody sitting there puffing on a cigarette and preaching to their kid, don't you ever start smoking. Don't you ever smoke. You know, the kid's not going to listen to your words if your actions don't match, if you're not congruent. If your actions don't match your words, your kid's just going to look at it as a big joke. Now, my opinion, from what I've seen, at least what Chris and Hollie show on camera, they should not be raising a child. There's a reason that Hollie had her other children taken away. There's a reason. Now, what I'm wondering is, why don't you put Elion in school? He needs to be in school. Why don't you put him in school? Well, I'm going to tell you several reasons why you probably don't. First of all, you don't want the school people, the doctors, all the people who would be involved in him being in school. You don't want them to see how he's treated. You don't want them to see the bruises on his body. You don't want them to see how he's emaciated. Secondly, you don't want him telling other people what's really going on. Because if you let him go to school, he's going to tell the doctors, he's going to tell the teachers, he's going to tell everybody exactly what goes on off camera. And you are scared to death of sending him to school, because that means, and you know how kids are, they're going to tell the truth. That means he's going to tell everybody what's going on. He's going to tell everybody how he's treated off camera. He's going to tell everybody how he's been abused. And the last reason I want to mention why you don't send him to school is because you don't want your little lifestyle scam to be disturbed. You want to keep things status quo. You want to keep him there with you, away from everybody else, so you can protect your own asses. That's exactly right, and you know it. You don't want your little utopia, or whatever you want to call it, to be disturbed. Now, here is why I keep saying you are both narcissists. I think Hollie's worse than Chris, but both of them are narcissists because they only care about themselves. The truth is, you don't care about your child. You care about yourself many times more than you care about your child. You see, most normal mothers will put their children first. When they go to a restaurant, they will make sure that their child has a plate of food, even if they go without. But not you pigs. You go to a restaurant and you sit there stuffing your mouth like a glutton while your child sits there begging for scraps. That's not being a parent. It's not being a good parent, I'll tell you that. That's atrocious. It's despicable. You are not fair to your son. You don't care about your child's safety, the things that you let him do. There's no way in hell my parents would have let me ride an ATV without a helmet when I'm 4 or 5 years old. Or hang from the rafters where I could fall and break my neck. Oh, I'm raising him to be tough. Yeah, so was Sam. That's how Sam was raising his son, to be tough. Yeah. And like I keep saying, one of these days he's going to be big enough where he can do damage to both of you. And he's going to turn on you because you have taught him to disrespect authority. You have taught him that he doesn't have to obey rules because he sees what you do. And so it's just like the guy sitting there smoking, telling somebody not to smoke. You can tell him whatever you want to tell him, but if your actions don't match, he's not going to listen to you. When it comes right down to it, when he gets old enough to where you can't handle him physically anymore, you are in for a rude awakening. Just like Sam was. You're a narcissist because you don't care about his safety. You don't care about his future. What kind of future does that child have with you guys? And some of you people that say, well, all he has to know is the woods. Oh, bite me. You people that say that are dumber than a brick, I swear. What fantasy land, what reality do you live in? You don't live in reality. You live in some fantasy world where everything's just peachy keen. Look, just because you and Hollie are ignorant doesn't mean that you have to raise Elion to be ignorant. That's not fair to him. He needs to be at school playing with other kids. He needs to be learning something other than your stupidity. He needs an example other than what example you guys are setting for him. Yeah, he sees his mother out there flipping the bird and acting like a hoe. Dancing with her ass in front of the camera like a hoe. What kind of child is going to respect his mother? Especially when that child gets old enough to realize what's going on. You think he's going to respect you, Holly? Oh, hell no. He's not going to respect either of you because you've taught him not to respect authority. And when he gets old enough to start figuring things out for himself and sees your behavior, he's not going to have any respect for you. And that is not fair to him. You are our narcissist because you only care about yourself. You do not care about your child. If you did, you'd put him in school. If you did, you'd take him to the doctor and make sure that he's healthy. Make sure he doesn't have some issue with his ears. You don't care about him. The only thing you care about him is him bringing in money because you know damn good and well, if it wasn't for him, people wouldn't be sending you all this stuff. So he's your cash cow. He's your little money maker. Yeah, and as he gets older, it's going to be less and less. You want to keep him there so you can provide things for you. The money doesn't do Elion any good. He gets sent toys, and you guys take him back to the store and get your money back so you can buy cigarettes, beer, and drugs. And he goes without. Like that one video where he says, "Oh, I get my own plate of food." You know what that tells me? That doesn't happen very often. That is not right. I mean, I can't even think of adjectives strong enough to say what kind of parents you are that would do that to a child. You need to think about his future. If you guys want to screw up your own lives, that's up to you. But don't screw up your child's in the process. Let him have a fighting chance of becoming somebody and not just becoming some bum mooching off of other people. Because that's what you're frickin' teaching him. You're teaching him that you don't have to work. All you have to do is mooch, 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 mooch. And sponge off other people that are stupid enough and idiotic enough and gullible enough to send you things. That's what you're teaching him. That's just horrendous as far as I'm concerned. You don't care about your child's health. He could have issues. Oh, but you don't care. As long as he's bringing in money for you, that's all you care about. That's all you care about. And you can say I'm full of crap, and you people can come in and try to defend them and whatever. But what are we seeing? What are we seeing? You can't defend that. I'm sorry. You people that try to defend them, you can't defend that. What do you see? What are they showing? Exactly what I'm saying. You can't dispute that. I'm sorry. The evidence is there. The truth is, Chris and Holly, you only care about what is good for you. You couldn't care less what's good for Elion. You put yourselves first. You put your needs, your wants, your desires, and your habits first. Elion comes last in everything. Where's all the stuff that people have sent him? Where's all the clothes that people have sent him? You take him back to the store and you get money for cigarettes, beer, and drugs. Because your behavior, and trust me, I saw a lot of drug addicts in 10 years as a cop. And your behavior, you're on a lot more than beer. And a lot more than pot. Yeah, you both got the pock marks. Both of you. Oh, I suppose Chris has a rash too, huh? Yeah. Give me a break. You people, you're not normal. You're not rational. And you can flag all the comments. You can make all these videos about me and everybody else where you're just grabbing stuff out of your butt because you want to try to discredit me because of what I'm saying. But it doesn't matter who or what I am. The things that I'm saying are still true. So you can try to disparage me all you want. It doesn't make any difference. Because you have nothing except blah, 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 blah. Whereas I have proof. Proof from your own videos. Proof from court documents. Proof from eyewitnesses as to what kind of people you are. You are responsible before God for what you teach that child. And what you are teaching him is not godly. It's not right. You and your narcissistic behavior are stealing Elian's childhood. You're stealing from him. You are not fit to be parents. You're not fit to be parents. And I don't care, you people who support them are idiots if you say any different. If you don't have the common sense that God gave a goose or even a rock, you don't have the common sense of a rock if you think that what they're doing is okay. But turds of a feather hang together, right? As I keep saying, only a hoe would defend a hoe. Only a scammer would defend a scammer. Only a liar would defend a liar. Only a thief would defend a thief. And so if you defend them, you're the same as them.